environmental policy shapes the aquarium trade, and I'm specifically looking at Potter's angelfish and how to raise them in captivity. So over the past 2 years, I've been doing this research at the Oceanic Institute with my advisor, Dr. Chad Cowan. Unfortunately, he's on Big Island right now, so he cannot join us. But my other advisor, Regina Osgard-Klin, is an awesome environmental economist that I was able to work with. So the aquarium industry globally is a $15 billion industry every year. It's a massive industry and it relies on wild-caught fish. In Hawaii, this fishery, when fish were collected from Hawaii, was valued at over $2.5 million a year. Through the export of aquarium fish, many of them die, over 50% in some cases. As you can see in the top right, hundreds of thousands of yellow tangs were killed in the process of wild collection for the aquarium trade prior to 2021. So just some stats, there were over 300,000 yellow tang exported every year and over 10,000 Potter's angelfish from reefs in Hawaii. Luckily since then, the yellow tang has been successfully cultured at OI, and we have brought it to commercial production, which is a huge, huge deal that can't be overstated. So in 2021, the state of Hawaii banned the collection of reef fish for the aquarium trade. So this shut down a multi-million-dollar industry and cut off all access to Hawaiian endemics and Hawaiian native species for the trade for aquariums. So the only way to get these fish is now through ornamental aquaculture. And a little bit about ornamental aquaculture. Ornamental fish are those that are not meant to be eaten. They're pretty fish, they're for aquariums, they're for hobbyists in the aquarium trade. So ornamental aquaculture is the raising of these fish in captivity, the whole life cycle, adult to egg, larva, all the way back to adult in a closed system. So we don't have to take these fish off the reef. So ornamental aquaculture can prevent the stress on wild fish stocks while also producing a viable alternative for the aquarium industry. And also understanding the complex life histories behind these fish and their larval growth stages is really, really important for future management of fisheries in general. So I was very lucky and I was able to collect Potter's angelfish eggs from broodstock at the Oceanic Institute for the past 2 years. As you can see in the top right, we have 2 unviable eggs and 1 clearly developed viable egg. These were then stocked into 200 and 1,000 liter rearing tanks and given a set protocol. So we were working with, I started with protocols that were already in place, used for the yellow tang and other aquarium species. So the feeding protocol, it details when and what feed we give. So these fish have to be fed with live microorganisms such as copepods, rotifers, and artemia, as you can see in the middle. These have to be continually cultured in the millions or even billions every single day. So we basically have to recreate anything that a fish would experience in the wild in a tank. You have to give it every single food that it needs to survive. So in the bottom right, you can see 2 larvae with body length and body depth. This is how I was able to create my growth rates and see how these larvae were affected by the different protocols that I was given. And then moving on to the environmental policy of my project, I wanted to assess the impact that the aquarium industry had on, that the collection ban had on the aquarium industry. And to do this, I performed interviews with different stakeholders and a UH law student who did her master's thesis on this industry. Through that, I was able to gain a lot of valuable insights and data, and I was able to produce my own proposed policy scenario that includes ornamental aquaculture with more benefits to all stakeholders around Hawaii. So my results, this is the, sorry, getting emotional. It's the first time that this species was ever produced commercially, which means that no fish were taken from the ocean. It's a huge deal for the future of this industry, and it's a huge deal to me, but I'm really hopeful that this can be replicated for other species, what we've learned here. So we were able to find that the critical period of flexion for these fish was 14 to 20 days post-hatch. As you can see on the right, these fish develop very quickly during that time, fill out their body, increase body depth very quickly, and inflate their swim bladder and gain a lot of area in their gut. So for the comparison of my protocols, I was able to get data for 3 protocols. Unfortunately, 2 of the protocols had loss of replicates due to massive die-offs, which was very sad. But we were able to compare 3 different protocols and saw significant differences in them. So this is a huge deal because it shows that the different timings of the feeds, even just by a few days, has massive effects on growth and survival. As you can see, we had massive differences in survival for each protocol. A protocol that includes adult copepods had the highest survivability by far, which kind of makes sense given that copepods are one of the most abundant zooplankton around Hawaii, and these are Hawaiian endemic species, so it's a vital nutrient for them. Also, the timing of the feeds and mitigating large die-off events when starting those feeds was vital in improving the survivability of these fish. And pairwise comparisons were performed on the data to prove that these were very significant results. And like I said, this led to the first cohort of these fish ever produced for consumers in the aquarium industry. And then looking at the environmental policy, the collection ban, as I said, cut off the supply of wild native Hawaiian species for the aquarium trade. So obviously with low supply and high demand, you're gonna have higher prices. The prices of the aquaculture alternatives also include the cost of research and production for these fish, which is very, very high. So the yellow tang before the collection ban was on average about $75 and now retails for about $160, $180. And the Potter's Angelfish was around $250 and now retails for about $750 on average. So it proves that ornamental aquaculture is a viable alternative for revenue for the state of Hawaii. And for my interdisciplinary contributions, I was able to take data from the lab and huge advancements that we found and apply it to environmental policy, and specifically within Hawaii, and show that this case study can be applied to other areas around the globe and other countries, developing countries that heavily export ornamental fish. So the environmental regulations that Hawaii implemented were extreme. However, there was a direct correlation in the stricter regulations and more investment in ornamental aquaculture and the advancements that we're seeing in the lab. And my policy scenario also presents like a framework for the state of Hawaii to implement ornamental aquaculture with the stricter environmental regulations. So yeah, it shows that through investment, more species can be reared in captivity, and that's especially important to apply to other species around the globe, because developing countries such as Indonesia export hundreds of millions of fish every single year, and through increased development and increased investment into aquaculture projects there, it can be shown that we don't have to take any fish off of the reef. Just a summary of the key takeaways of this project. Like I said, this was the first time that these fish have ever been produced in numbers viable to sell to consumers to replace the wild caught fish. So it shows that ornamental aquaculture is a viable alternative for the aquarium industry, which is a huge, huge, huge deal. And it also shows that policy decisions have a direct impact on the aquarium trade and can have massive effects in transitioning the aquarium trade from wild caught species to aquaculture specimens. I'd also like to thank Biota and our Well, obviously there's always leaks in the regulations, but it was a heavily regulated fishery, especially on Big Island.
So your policies and stuff that you run your whole project on, have you shared those with other fisheries and aquariums? Are you guys kind of like keeping it?
Like how to raise these?
Yeah.
So some of it's kind of not shown, but we do have a partnership with Georgia Aquarium. So if you see some of our fish there, that as well. Yes.
So great job on making a solution for those potter fish. Are you gonna advance your solution so that it accommodates for other species and also the world, since ocean is getting more acidified?
Mm-hmm. So, like I said, it's very, very important for these findings to be applied to other species. I personally believe that what we found here can be applied to the whole genus and also other species in the family of angelfish, and even to many other fish. And that's super important because that means that hundreds of millions of fish don't have to be taken out of the ocean eventually once we figure out how to raise these fish in captivity efficiently.
Yay!